Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Transportation, Infrastructure, Energy, and Environment Committee, where we're taking up an important piece of legislation with respect to our commercial PACE program. Miss Amanda, did you want to start us off, or?
I will defer to you as the bill sponsor, and it's your amendment, so I'll defer to you as to whether or not you want to lead off, and I can jump in when you feel appropriate.
Why don't you jump in?
I'll just jump in now then. What you have before you is Bill 3318, which would make amendments to the county's CPACE program, which has been, a real important program for the council and the county in general. At the public hearing and in testimony, the council's received support for the bill and Councilmember Berliner's amendments from many members of the industry. The executive has concerns with the amendments that are on Circle 23, and I'm happy to walk through them. On behalf of the executive at the public hearing, Mr. Espinosa indicated that they could support the bill if it had a couple of different amendments. One was to remove language that required the surcharge to be placed on the July 1st tax bill that follows the execution of the financing agreement, and to add language to the law that would essentially be a clawback provision, that if improvement doesn't come to fruition, that they could remove the surcharge from the tax bill. The amendments that are on Circle 23 that are proposed by the chair would remove the requirement that the surcharge be placed on the July 1st, the following July 1st, and remove the requirement that the property owner have to have already obtained permits and permanently affix the improvements to the house. Essentially, what this language does is change the program such that the surcharge is placed before at project approval, essentially, and not project completion. Mr. Berliner's amendments does not include the clawback provision. The executive has submitted a memo, which is in your packet, and indicates that they don't support the amendments without the clawback provision, and this is kind of essentially what we're talking about this morning, is this clawback provision. Council staff didn't do a survey of every single law governing every single PACE program in the county. However, we received testimony that the changes proposed by the amendments would essentially bring the county's program in line with other programs in the country and in Maryland. I'll just note, like I said before, that we're really, the chief issue here is the clawback provision and whether or not it's advisable to allow the surcharge to be placed at project approval or at completion. I've learned a lot over the last couple of weeks about tax sales and lender financing, and at the end of the day, I weighed all of this, and it's staff's recommendation to support the Berliner amendments without the clawback provision. I'm just weighing all of the arguments and taking, all the other facts into consideration, and that's the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Mayo. Let me just speak briefly, and then I'll, of course, allow Alex to speak for 30 seconds. The original intention of the bill, of course, was to address what is a problem in our legislation, a problem that actually no other PACE program in the country has, which requires people that get involved in this program to get gap financing for a period of time. And literally no other program in the United States of America has it that way. Prince George's County actually adopted our legislation, but administratively, we are told, is not following that dynamic in which the surcharge waits until project completion. So this is something that we were told in no uncertain terms had to be fixed, that our county program, while having started out strong, because we were the first in the state of Maryland to actually go forward, is now falling behind other jurisdictions because it is just too hard. That the major contractors who have been involved in this program said, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. So we felt it was very important to make this change. in conversations with finance came back and said, as you said, Ms. Myhill, that they'd like what we're calling a clawback provision, which says that if the improvements are not made, then we can take it off the tax rolls, that we don't have to be the vehicle by which the loan's repaid. And finance is concerned about their batching of tax lien sales and things of that nature, which are understandable. The result of their clawback, however, is it's a poison pill. It kills the program. It makes the loans unsecured. And every lender has said, we'd rather not have your legislation actually improving the program if the cost of this is, in fact, the provision that the administration now seeks. No other jurisdiction in America has this clawback provision. No jurisdiction in America that has this program, and I believe there's $700 million worth of C-PACE loans made throughout the country. Not a single one of them have gone into default and required a tax lien sale. This is a hypothetical problem that has never occurred in this program's history. And the result of addressing this hypothetical problem is it will kill the program. Now, our county has declared a climate emergency. One of the most important aspects that we have in the work ahead of us is retrofitting our existing commercial buildings. And this program is at the heart of that. This program ought to be popping. This program is so good that if we get out of our own way, it will be the biggest program in the state of Maryland. And we're going to lose that honor very shortly to Baltimore County, which has more projects underway than we do at this point in time. So I've met several times. We've had respectful conversations and respectful disagreements that the concerns of finance in a small world of finance is understandable. It does not compare to the benefits of this program and the infinitesimally small risk of the concerns that have been raised. So other than that, I don't have strong feelings about this. But I will turn to Mr. Espinoza to allow you to give. And let me just say one other thing that I know you will say. This clawback provision actually exists today under the law that we have. That is, the clawback provision doesn't. But there is no shifting of risk other than, as Mr. Espinoza will say, the risk that somehow the project improvements are not made. But the risk of default exists today, and we don't have this provision. So in a very fundamental sense, it is retrading the bill that we've passed already and the program we have already and making a fundamental change that will kill the program according to everybody involved in the program's operations. Mr. Espinoza.
Well, with that,
30 seconds may be too much.
well, let me just say, I think everybody's on the same page with respect to wanting to look at the program and obviously look at areas where it can be improved. I think everybody has the same objective in mind. The county executive certainly does. And that's what we attempted to do in all those discussions we had with you and your staff and others. But let me just, I guess, address a little bit more clearly, since it might have just been passed over a little bit in all of our series of discussions with respect to the clawback provision. That clawback provision really only came about after it became clear to us that the objective was not only just to accelerate the timing of the surcharge confirmation process from being provided after project completion to at the time of loan execution. So once it became clear to us that that was not the only objective, that the objective was to, in fact, ensure that that the surcharge was placed on the tax bill regardless of whether a project is completed. That's the point in time when a clawback provision essentially came into play. The intent of what our initial proposal was to amend your initial legislation was to address that primary consideration or primary concern that we understood from the lenders, that being that the confirmation occurs only after project completion. And we accepted that. We agreed that that confirmation could occur at the time of loan execution, but let's leave intact all the other provisions in the law under the current program. But again, the clawback came in after the fact, after it became clear to us that the surcharge had to appear on the tax bill regardless of whether the project was completed or not. That's what causes the problem for the executive branch.
And you accept the fact that no project in the country has had a tax lien sale.
I accept the fact that that's been asserted. I don't know if that's actually the case. I mean, I think that's an option, before us as well. We can investigate some of these questions and concerns and find out the answers before we actually change the law.
I think we've had enough time to do that, sir. Mr. Hucker, any thoughts, reflections, comments? Or are we done here?
I think the horse is dead. I think this is a very manageable risk. This is a very important program that needs to succeed. I don't know that we need to be. I often am comfortable with Montgomery County being a leader in all kinds of areas. This is not an area where we need to distinguish ourselves by making a program that's dysfunctional, and we need to succeed, and it's rare for us to have so much testimony from both the business community and the environmental community saying that this is something that we need. I'm comfortable with the bill and without the provision, and I think we ought to be aligned with other jurisdictions and really be a leader in this space and not, and as you said, get out of our own way. And look, if we have a bunch of defaults down the road, we'll be back here revisiting this issue. But right now, knowing what we know, in the absence of any defaults, that finance can point to, I think we need to pass this.
Ms. Mahill?
I am just going to make a clarification that what you, presuming, are going to be recommending enactment of is the Berliner amendments, not the bill as introduced.
That's correct. Which actually incorporated several good suggestions of finance and rejected one very bad one. I think we're done here. Thank you all.